Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock Blog, and I'm here with Dion, Kenny, and Adam for another episode of Wuxia Weekend. And tonight we're going to be talking about Kung Fu Hustle, the 2004 Stephen Chow film. This one's really well known, so it probably doesn't need a lot of explanation, but it's essentially, Kung Fu Wuxia meets Looney Tunes in sort of a gangster, what was it, 1930s, 1940s type setting, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Something like that.
Yeah, 1930s probably.
So all four of us except for Dion has seen this movie, and I think what I want to do is get Dion's reaction first because I don't want us to I don't want us to muddy the discussion by giving our opinions and have Dion have to wade into it. So why don't you just give your opinion freshly here?
I have no idea why this movie is a classic. I thought it was a schizophrenic film. It was too all over the place for me. I watched it twice just to make sure I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
I have to say,
I didn't turn it off, but I didn't like it.
I really respect that you watched it twice to confirm that you didn't like it. That's a special kind of dedication because you knew how revered the movie was, so you just wanted to double check. But
yes, and I wanted to be solely focused on it. The first night I watched it, I was a little off, so I wanted to give it my undivided 100% focused attention. And I liked it a little bit more the second time I watched it than I did the first time. The first time, after the first maybe 20 minutes, I wanted to turn it off. But I was like, no, I'm going to watch it because I want to see what all the fuss is about. And, I was like, okay, what did these guys put me into at the end? But eventually I was kind of like, okay, this is just one weird movie for me.
I promise I was not setting you up. You are literally the first person I have ever met that didn't like this movie. I'm sure there are plenty of other people that don't like the movie, but I've never encountered anybody who did. So I was genuinely surprised that it didn't go over well for you. But I can understand based on what you were saying because when I was watching it today, I was like, I want to find I was trying to look at it through the eyes of somebody who doesn't like it. Do you know, and I was like, okay, I could sort of see if I'm in the mindset of not liking the movie, what would be the things that would drive me crazy? And so I was trying to identify those elements. But you said it was schizophrenic. So was it just the tone being all over the place? Was that what was affecting you?
That, and I think it was trying to put too many genres into one film. I was getting too many. There's like a little horror scene here. There's a romance here. There was too much slapstick comedy here. There was gangster here. There was this dance number. It was just too all over the place for me.
So, well, that's fair. I'm at least happy that you watched it twice. I think that's a very, good effort to make, for a movie that you don't like. And so I guess who wants to go next, giving their opinion on the movie?
I guess I'm up. I actually really, really love this movie. I mean, at the same time, I can understand why people would hate it because it's a lot of it is obnoxious and, like I said, it is all over the place. And I don't know if the character arcs in it kind of really hold all that together for me, but I don't care. It's just I just enjoy like almost every moment of this movie, even though I can kind of see some flaws in it. It's just, I mean, it's something I watched before I even started really watching wuxia movies, so I didn't even watch it in the context of that. It was just this crazy movie I watched, and but yeah, I mean, it's just a very unique movie too. It is something I think it's worth watching just to decide if you like it, because you're not going to see another movie that's a whole lot like it. But I don't know. What are you guys' opinions here?
Yeah, and I enjoy this movie, but less than I enjoy Shaolin Soccer. I still think it's like a decent movie to watch. Like, it's enjoyable. Yeah, I can I think I can appraise it a bit more objectively than I could Shadow Soccer. You know, it's slightly less rose-tinted glasses, but I still think like maybe because of being familiar with Stephen Chow and his Molly Tell movies, like this is like one of those movies where I was just like, okay, I can turn off my brain and watch it. If he likes to throw random things into a blender and whatever comes out either be a mess or an interesting smoothie, then so be it, right?
I did like the Shaolin Soccer reference at the
no more
stomps
soccer.
yeah.
Because I think at the point of this movie, everyone was like badgering him for Shaolin Soccer 2 or a sequel, to yeah. I think his response was like, no, screw you guys, I'm gonna make whatever I want to make.
I think it's a great movie. I probably do have those rose tinted glasses. I remember watching Shaolin Soccer when it came out on DVD at Blockbuster, and then I remember watching this in the theater when it came out, and it just was. I thought it was an amazing movie because it kind of has all the things that I'm a total sucker for in it. So it's got the way that it uses music and the way that it sort of just very rapidly shifts from humor to romance to to sort of like tragic backstory to just kind of is this really sort of crazy turn on a dime from genre to genre and from tone to tone, and so all of those elements work for me. But also I thought I really like the humor of this film. I think the humor works. I like the characters in the movie. Like I think that the landlord and the landlady are really great characters, and a lot of the other characters are equally impressive. And so I enjoy spending the hour and 38 minutes that you spend with these characters. And also it's the kind of movie I find that the more I watch it, the more I notice things about it that I like. Where like this time, just one little detail, I was looking for any evidence of all of the people that we know are going to be masters that haven't revealed themselves yet. I was looking for clues that they're masters when they first enter into the scene. And so when you see the tailor, the first thing that you see of him in the shot is those rings up on the bars that he has, and you see the guy that uses the spear. You see him rolling dough with the long. I mean, it's concealed, but it's obviously one of his spears. And with the landlord, you see him die. Like he doesn't die, but he falls, and a normal person would die in that situation, and he doesn't. And pretty early on, you see the landlady scream in a very supernatural way. So I don't know. I just always notice little details like that when I watch the movie again. So I really quite enjoy it. But I don't know what I guess we could probably start with this film by just talking generally about the story. I don't think we need to go beat by beat, but do people have any opinions on the story itself before we get into the kung fu action and the humor and the specific characters?
I'd say the story isn't the strong point of the movie. Like, I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm looking at it from the character development point of view, but I feel like seeing sort of 180. The pivotal moment where he attacks the toad. I don't remember what his name. The beast attacks the beast. Did seem to come out of nowhere and made no sense. Given everything we've been shown about the
when he decides to attack the beast rather than them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean,
it's a very important moment of the movie.
Yeah.
So
it's a decision. It's a decision on his part for sure.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, that's when I said the character arcs don't hold together for me entirely. It's like that's the thing. It's like I don't feel. I mean, obviously we get the backstory of how he became so bad, but there just isn't any emotional weight to the moment where he turns around either for me. But I mean, I like the movie despite that. But it's what stops it from being like an amazing movie for me. But
yeah, it was just too disjointed to me. It's a very simple story, that could be told in the right way, but to me, it just wasn't told in the right way. Being that it hops from this tone to that tone, and this genre to that genre, and the story was just all over the place. I just would have liked a more linear story and better character development.
I mean, I agree. It's a very simple story. I mean, I like the story, but I think that the reason why the simple story works is because there's so much going on in the movie that having just that, like, it would be really hard to remember a more complicated story being told in flashback, sequences with all this stuff going on. So, and also I feel like the story, it ultimately works in the end. Like you ultimately get the emotional payoff at the end with, the whole thing with, when they keep going back to that one theme song when he was getting beat up and pissed on by the bullies, that sort of having that be the sort of, the big thing that set him on this path to being a bad guy, I thought worked at the end when he redeems himself. But I do kind of agree that the decision to attack the beast does feel like it comes out of nowhere. I think I was okay with it because it feels like a choice, but I agree with what Adam was saying, where if they could have made that have more emotional weight, it would have felt richer as a viewer. Like if it had the same weight as the scene when he destroys the lollipop, right? Like if it had that kind of weight to it, it would have been more effective. But yeah, so I guess in terms of story though, there really isn't a whole lot to chew on. It's just a very basic, boy learns Buddha's palm, boy, tries to apply Buddha's palm and gets the crap beat out of him, and then becomes a bad guy, and then redeems himself in the end. So what did you guys think of the
I find it funny in the story that that the whole movie only happened because they wanted to try and get a free haircut. Like ignoring everything else before and after, that one incident was the reason why the Axe Gang got dragged into this pigsty alley place in the first place and have to recruit ever increasing ranks of masters to try and take revenge on what I guess a slight of face there.
That scene's an example of one of the things I like so much about the movie though. Like when he goes out and like he throws the firecracker and then it hits the guy in the head, and then that trumpet music with the rolling drum beat comes in, and anytime the Axe Gang shows up, you get the trumpet and the rolling drum beat, and I don't know, just it's kind of like Star Wars. The music just establishes stuff, and if you put the story on paper, it might seem weak. Like if you've ever read Star Wars, the script, it doesn't seem all that impressive, but if you watch the movie with the music, it all works together, and I think this is that kind of film. But yeah. It does all kind of come down to that haircut. There's a lot of scenes like that, though. There's a lot of scenes that, like, if they just this random choice to do this sort of is the thing that leads them in the direction that they go.
Yeah, and I know, it's just one of those things where it's just like everything is cascaded from there. I think I think like the sort of you mentioned the music there. We should probably quickly mention the dance number in the beginning, which Dion didn't get all, right? Well, for me, that was one of the best bits of the movie. Actually,
I agree. I agree. So you want to know what sold me on the movie?
To heaven and hell.
Dion, you know what sold me on the movie when I first saw it is when the Axe Gang leader was holding the axe and dancing up to the Crocodile Gang crime boss and about to kill him. That stylish, with the trumpet music and the drums and him kind of doing a little dance as he's about to go axe a guy. That's what convinced me that this was a great movie the first time I saw it.
I guess I don't like my gangsters to dance. I don't know.
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely like if somebody explained it to me, I'd probably not be interested in the movie, right? But seeing it just totally worked for me.
And I think that the beginning couple of minutes there really sort of helped ingrain in subconsciously that or I say subconsciously, but really set the tone with the music that is the Axe Gang theme, and that when you hear that, things are gonna happen. And it's really distinctive. Like I think that's a really well chosen piece of music for them. Actually, I don't know, it just somehow really fits the Axe Gang theme that they're going for there.
Well, and I like the opening, the way that they start out in the police station. You have this crime boss who's like, brutalizing the police, and and he seems to be the big man, and then he walks outside, and it's basically a gang hit. Like there's a power change going on, and you get this the Axe Gang is introduced, and you see how big their numbers are, and this guy is because it's sort of like the old gang leader is killed in the opening of the film. You just get a sense of how powerful Axe Gang is right from the start, and so that with the music, it just really helps to sort of establish that. So I don't know, what did you guys think of the fight scenes? Because the fighting in this is definitely different than a lot of other movies, and I think Sammo Hung and Yuan Wu Ping did the fight choreography. Though there's a lot of CG, so it kind of has a different look.
The use of CG wasn't the best. I thought. So the one scene with the music and the army of the undead sweeping across the square was a pretty impressive one. But otherwise,
scene?
The harp scene.
That's my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Yeah. But the other use of CG, like, I don't know, like the Beast when he's using the Toad stance was kind of and I think the excessive use of CG actually made a lot of the fight scenes a lot less impressive than they could have been. But at the same time, like with the style of movie that it was, I don't think it would have worked without it. But maybe better use of CG would have improved it.
Well, it's also not, the CG hasn't aged very well because it's 2004. But I feel like, just like you said, because of the style of the film, it wouldn't have worked as well if this was all like wire-fu stuff, right? Like they could have just done it with wires and done it, in the traditional way, and it wouldn't have had the sort of dated effect of the CG. But everything was sort of on the fringe of being a Looney Tunes cartoon, so having the CG really added to that. It's just that it also had the double effect of clouding some of the movements, and you could see that the actors, some of them were maybe more comfortable working with CG than others, or maybe just some of the choices they made when they decided to use the CG on the actor just didn't work in that particular moment. But in other ones it did. Like I thought it worked really well for the landlord and his abilities, like how he was all flexible and stuff. That would have probably been harder to do without CG. I thought it worked really well in the chase scene with the landlady, where they were clearly going for like a Looney Tunes thing, like that. Like you couldn't have done that any other way, really, right? Like I see Dion shaking her head, so I'm assuming that's not.
I hated that scene. That scene was where I started going, okay, this is very schizophrenic. 'Cause it was, like you said, it was very Looney Tune-ish, and it kind of brought back memories of another film that I didn't like, Roger Rabbit. I don't know. Okay. I kept making these connections to other films. And they kind of like, I don't know, it just weirded me out, and I just was not crazy about it.
I could see how you would make that comparison. I do think it's a somewhat unfair comparison because Roger Rabbit has not aged well at all. Like Roger Rabbit, you can't go back and watch that movie. I watched it as a kid and liked it. Huh?
You can't go back and watch Roger Rabbit.
No, it just doesn't hold up. But this movie, I feel like I still like it every time I go back and see it. It feels like it's got a little bit more of a timeless quality than that film, but I can definitely see the comparison, and I think I don't know. I think the thing that you don't like about it is the thing I like about it. So I think that's why we're coming down on totally different sides of the fence. Because I love the Looney Tunes. My favorite scene in the movie is when it shifts to the horror scene when I forget his name, the guy who does the kicking style. The what is it?
12 Kicks.
Yeah, the 12 Kicks guy. when he gets his head cut off, that scene when he's walking down the street and it's like a horror film, and they're sort of slowly playing the guzheng music, and you see the cat get cut in half, and then you see like a leaf get cut in half, and then you see his head fall off in the shadow. You know, that I liked that it was able to have scenes like that by just dipping in and out of all these different genres. Do you know what I mean?
But I didn't find that horror film like. I thought that was one of the good scenes of the movie, the way that they set that up. With
okay. So what did you think was the horror film part?
When he went, when Singh went into rescue or break out, in the asylum, I thought that kind of was horror filmish to me.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that flash of the red blood and everything.
It reminded me of Dracula, the 1992 version from Coppola, with like the river of blood and the.
Yep.
I thought that was a Shining reference. That was a Shining reference.
Yeah. Well, but the music they were playing sounded like the music from '92 Dracula. That's why I was making that connection. But no, obviously The Shining is probably the more appropriate movie to name for that. But I don't know. Watch that scene again and listen to the music and tell me that doesn't sound like the Coppola Dracula.
I have to remember what the 92 Dracula.
Okay, listen to the Coppola Dracula soundtrack, then go
back. Okay. Oh yeah, I got to do this step by step.
So, but yeah, I could sort of see that. Though again, I have to admit that I liked that scene. That I liked that it sort of. I felt like I was watching like I don't know something out of Batman or something like it was there was like an asylum type quality to the place he was staying at. So,
there's something was said earlier about how after Chow and Soccer, he just wanted to make whatever he wanted to make and didn't want to make this movie it's just like he's just throwing in everything he feels like doing at the time in this movie. It's just such a I've now seen other movies by him, but this is just more filled with homages to other things than I think any of the other movies of his I've seen.
And
speaking of homages, like there's one scene which towards the end where it was fighting all the Axan people, which was I think quite clearly inspired by The Matrix.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, also Yuan Wu-Ping did the fight choreography for The Matrix, so it might have just been from that as well. But yeah, that scene also it kind of had like a Bruce Lee vibe too. A lot of that scene to me, like what was the one, the Chinese Connection or Fists of Fury, depending on which title it went by when you saw it. But the one where the Chinese school is fighting with the Japanese school, and he gets killed by gunfire at the end. I don't know, kind of. It reminded some of that scene reminded me of the scenes where he's doing the spinning kicks and knocking the guys out. But yeah. So I don't know. But what did you guys think of the martial characters in the movie? Like the way that you had like the three guys who were in hiding at Pigsty Alley. And you had the two masters that played the guzheng, and you had the landlord and the landlady who were masters, and then you had the main character who's kind of like a hidden master who doesn't realize that he's got all this potential, and you have the Beast, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but but you have all these different martial characters that populate the setting, and one of the things that I like about the movie is that. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but every time I watch it, I look for this, and I haven't been able to find evidence that it's not the case. Every instance of somebody doing something that's super Looney Tunes, like every instance where a person gets, like where something really comical happens to them that would kill a normal person, but they don't end up dying, it always seems to be because the person that is the recipient of that turns out to be a martial hero of some kind later in the movie. And so it's kind of so I like that the Looney Tunes all kind of flows from wuxia physics in a way, But I don't know. Any thoughts on just the martial personalities?
Speaking of the landlord and landlady, so this on your recent watches of the movie, did you pick up the names?
Yes. And so
Yeah.
interestingly, he called him. I think is Zhao Long Nu go by a different name in Cantonese than in?
Well, I think the way they translate it could be Dragon's Daughter, because
Okay.
Little Dragon Girl is the name, right?
It's-
And
well-
some readings of that could be called Dragon's Daughter. Which
Well, she said. Well, on my subs it said Paris and Hercules.
Oh,
But I listened to what they said, and he said
Paris and
Yangor.
Helen of Troy.
Oh, is Helena Troy? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But I listened to what they said, and it was Yangor, and it sounded like Zhao Long Nu, but the last syllable was slightly different, so I assumed it was.
Cantonese and Mandarin difference probably there.
Yeah.
But in the dub version that I watched, they were introduced as Zhang Guo and the Dragon's Daughter.
Oh, okay. So that leads to the question then: are they really Yangor and Zhao Long Nu?
Hell no.
I think they are. I think that they are. I think they're legitimately supposed to be Yangor and Zhao Long Nu, and they're in hiding for some reason. I
mean, you should know that the martial arts don't match up at all, right?
No, the martial arts don't. No, obviously they don't. Though I will say the Lion's Roar thing, right? Didn't Yangor learn that sort of that kind of kung fu from the master of Peach Blossom Island in Return of Condor Heroes? Wasn't there like a voice related martial ability that he had? I know that she was the one using it, but
the Lion's Roar came from the gold mane lion from Heaven's Sword Dragon Saber, I think. And I think that's the actual technique reference there.
okay, but wasn't there also another voice emanating kung fu thing that Master of Peach Blossom Island used?
Sure. I can't remember.
Well, either way, the kung fu definitely didn't match up because they don't use swords. And the only thing that I could think of was that their styles were sort of complementary when they were fighting. Like, they fought together and they seemed to be fighting as a duo, but that was the closest I could get in terms of martial abilities. But either way, the movie doesn't make sense, right? Like, it's very nonsensical. So it doesn't really matter because this is clearly like Yangor and Zhao Long Nu in like an alternate reality of some kind. This isn't just Yangor and Zhao Long Nu plucked out of Condor Heroes. This is, some other incarnation of these characters was my thought. And some of the personality traits were there. Like, the guy is kind of a ladies' man, right? And Yangor is established as having that personality early on in Return of Condor Heroes. Right?
I'd say pervert more than ladies' man in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I love when he says when the wife asks him what he's doing in the bathroom, and he says, "I'm looking for peeping toms," and then he asks the lady, "Did anybody peep at you?" And he just points at him, and just the visual humor in those scenes was pretty clever. But okay, he's a pervert. But either way, he's an amorous character, and he's kind of similar to Yangor in that Yangor was sort of early on, interested in all these different women, right? It's a lot harder to connect the landlady to Zhao Long Nu, because Zhao Long Nu is very cold and kind of gentle in a way, right? And this lady is pretty ferocious.
Not gentle.
No. She's incredibly violent, this lady. I know, I really liked her, though. I thought she was the most charming character in the movie.
They're great characters. There's no question about that. Yeah. There's no question for me about that.
So, Dion, were there any characters that you liked in the film? And were there characters that really annoyed you throughout the movie?
I liked the landlady and the landlord. I liked all the martial characters that lived at Pigsty. I thought they were really cool. I don't know. I kind of like the landlady because of the way she dressed. She just went around in her house coat and her curlers. I thought that was pretty funny. And then when they had her doing the lion's roar, and the way her body kind of went from fat to like slender, and her boobs puffed out, and then it all came out. I thought that was funny. The one character that annoyed me the most was the one character in the Pigsty Alley that walked around all the time with the back of his pants hanging down.
Well, he's supposed to be annoying, though, isn't he? Wasn't he the guy in Shaolin Soccer who had like all of the music in him that he had to get out, right?
He was the composer.
Yeah.
So he was the most annoying, but I like the harp players too. That was like my favorite scene of the whole movie.
They were really cool. I like that the Guzheng players had claws. I thought that was really clever, giving them claws. That totally made sense, and it made them so much more dangerous looking, and they just looked cool. They had a really cool look, and they were terrifying.
Kind of Blues Brother-ish.
Yeah, that's what it reminded. Yeah, that's definitely what it was like.
I have a movie reference for a lot of things that happened in this movie.
Well, I mean, the whole movie it's constantly referencing other films. You know, like there's literally a scene where he's standing in front of like a Fred Astaire poster, right? And he's emulating the poster in the way that he's holding her. Which I think that too that's one of my favorite moments in the film. But
except it's in a totally different context, right?
Yeah, but that's what's so funny about it is the context changes everything. It's a mugging, right? And so, but it turns out it's actually a love story in the end. So you know, but yeah, I don't know. I just really like the way that those those references work. It's almost like they're like little emotional buttons that the film is just pushing as it goes on. But yeah, I don't know. Anybody else have thoughts on any of the martial characters in the film?
Yeah, I like the moment the three guys that live at Pigsty Alley. I like the one moment where they all kind of look at each other after they've kind of revealed themselves. There's just this one moment. It's like, oh, that's just a great moment in the movie, I think.
Yeah, I think for the three masters, I think I like how their martial arts were sort of entwined with what their sort of day job was in a sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, except for the tailor was, I mean, it showed the rings, but
he was also the most contradictory character, anyways, because he was so feminine, but then his style was like the most masculine style that you could imagine. And so, and he's a tailor, and that's kind of like, I don't know, soft fabric, right? But he's using like the hard rings for like, so I think he was meant to be just filled with contradictions like that. But yeah, because the other guy was a coolie, right? Yep.
Yeah,
and,
going along your thing with them doing, impressive things the first thing, just that thing where he just flips the huge heavy bag up onto the other bags with one foot. So yeah. That's a kind of impressive feat that he pulls off right away.
And his kicks looked awesome in this movie. Those were like really strong, powerful kicks. I really liked the way it looked. It reminded me a little bit of Ong Bak, the style of kicking that he was doing. I don't think that was the intention, but I think Ong Bak was 2003, so I don't know. Maybe it did influence. But yeah, I don't know. What do people think of the Beast?
Well, I love how here's another character who looks like nothing you would expect him to. I mean, he's like he's the stereotypical like middle-aged man you'd find in an alleyway in Hong Kong, like having one too many beers, kind of like even with down to like the flip-flops and
the really bad comb over.
I love the fact that he was introduced while he was taking a shit as well.
I like that there is just something vaguely disturbing about the guy too. It's like he doesn't seem dangerous in any physical sense, but there is just something slightly off about him from the beginning.
I call it the pink glove syndrome. If you see a guy wearing pink boxing gloves, it immediately puts you on edge because nobody chooses to wear pink boxing gloves unless they can back it up, right? So this guy, clearly there's something about this guy that like he can look that way because he's got some kind of amazing ability, right? So
Yeah.
or he's a crazy person, one of the two.
Or both in this case.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Well, and he's got a really simple motivation, right? He just wants to find a worthy opponent, is what his stated goals are in the movie. So,
Well, he says, but then whenever he fights someone and he's losing, then he decides to break out the hidden method, right?
yeah, I think that was his I've always kind of wondered about that with that character because he presents himself as kind of like an evil Lancelot, right? Who's just looking for the worthy foe. But in both of those fights that we see him in, he pulls out the sneaky poison move, right? And he does it at a time when it's clearly like in one instance, actually I think in both it was when he was surrendering, right? He says I surrender, and then he
Yeah.
So maybe his logic was that, you know, anyone who can truly best him can also, like, well, that's kind of what happens at the end of Sing, right? But anyone who can, who is truly superior to him in martial arts will be able to fend off hidden attacks as well.
I mean, I suppose maybe he considers that intellectual part of, like that's still part of the fight, is the scheming, right? You can still, maybe his sense of it is a much more comprehensive chess game that includes those kind of tactics. I don't know, do you think he was really redeemed in the end?
What, Beast?
Yeah, the Beast.
I guess not really much was shown. Like, the only thing that he did was like he accepted Sing as his master, but what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? Like,
He wants to learn more Kung Fu. yeah.
If I had seen him working in the candy shop at the end, I might have thought he was redeemed.
That's a good point. Yeah, we don't see him at the candy shop.
We do see the landlord and the landlady walk by, right, at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I every time I'm like, I got to look for evidence of the Beast being present at the candy shop, and I can never find him. So he's either really well hidden or he's just not there, which I think is the case. I'm wondering why he would offer to teach that powerful technique to the Beast, just having seen the Beast try to like sneak attack him, right? Like, it seems a really dangerous thing to do. So my sense is maybe to master that ability, all of your meridians and stuff have to be in like operating in a way that only a virtuous person could. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe there's something inherently virtuous about the technique itself, and so if he teaches it to him, it'll be naturally rectifying of any, moral issues that the guy might have. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Buddha's palm, I guess. Although I don't think the original Buddha's palm was associated with any sort of morality stuff.
No, and it was and the Buddha's palm movie is kind of like a very self-referential wuxia film. There's a you reviewed it with us, right, Kenny, or did you not?
No, that was what I missed.
Oh, okay. There's actually a scene in Buddha's palm where a character gets betrayed or tricked, and the narrator is like, if he had only read more wuxia stories, he wouldn't have been betrayed at the crucial moment. He would have. But yeah, no, this is a much more elaborate Buddha's palm, I feel. And then it gets even more crazy, like because Stephen Chow kind of carries that into Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons, right? Doesn't he have the big giant Buddha's palm at the end of the movie in that as well? But it's like planet sized, if I remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was, yeah. I don't know. I still think, like, the the technique of this movie was a bit ridiculous, blasting a palm-shaped hole in the building and leaving just enough indents to make it look like perfect fingers as well.
But I like it. It feels like a sermon when he does it, right? It's like he does the palm on the ground, and then it's like a massive horn, and there's this like stunned look on the guy's face, and then he tries to. What is he had the poison like lotus flower or whatever it was? I don't some kind of golden flower thing, and he just takes the flower. He takes out the venom, and then he just does it like a pinwheel, and it flies into the air. And it kind of felt like a what is it, the Lotus Sutra or something? Like just this moment where everything is supposed to crystallize
and be at peace.
Yeah, like if you're having a very optimistic reading of the beast's internal experience of the moment, that was my thinking was, oh, maybe he realized, when he took the poison out of this thing, it became this beautiful thing that ascended into the heavens. And so the beast realizes he has to remove the poison within himself, and then he too can ascend into the heavens and master Buddha's palm. But I don't know.
It's funny because like in that scene as well, when the landlord and landlady were talking, they're like, "Oh my god, his martial arts are so great. What can they do in the future?" And they're like, "Well, he could be a stuntman, I guess."
Well, and it's funny because they actually they also say he could be a lawyer or an accountant, right? Was that, or a doctor or a lawyer, right?
A doctor or a lawyer, and that's what he saved his money to be.
That's what he was saving to be. So, and they said that he would be the same age as their son they saw die in a fight. So my question is, did they see him get beat up by those kids, and was he really their son, and they just assumed he died? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Well,
I had that same question or that same thought.
Why would you say no, Kenny? Though why no?
Maybe it's from the Cantonese.
Okay.
When I watched Wuxia, they never got the impression that they were similar in that vein. Like they mentioned, like if our son was still alive, he would be around the same age. Mm-hmm. Which I think that's probably consistent, but the tone of it didn't seem to be implying that this could be our long lost son kind of thing. Okay.
I don't know, but did they also say that he died in a fight?
I think they might have mentioned grudges or something like that.
Because when they talk about why they're in hiding, they explain it in the subs, they were saying that their son was killed in a fight, so that's why they vowed never to do martial arts.
Yeah, I think that they mentioned that. Yeah,
and I kind of like to think that that's what happened. They saw this fight, and they just assumed, I guess, very quickly, because obviously he gets up 2 seconds later, so they just very quickly determined that he was dead and left him for some reason.
I mean, he was moving, and I didn't assume like Kung Fu masters would be able to tell, like even at a distance of.
Maybe they were really far. Maybe they were like really far away. You know what I mean? Maybe they were like some great distance away, and they.
You know what? Let's not bury our son, or
No. Here's the scenario. They're really, really far away. They see the fight from the distance. It looks much more brutal and deadly from this great distance, and they assume he's dead, and they go run to get him. But by the time they get there, he's already fled, and there's just a girl who can't speak, left behind, and they assume that he was killed and his body was taken away by the people that killed him. But
it's an interesting theory, Brendan.
I'm going to stand by it. I think it's got legs.
Oh dear.
But yeah. So I don't know. Any further thoughts on characters in the film or any of the martial arts?
Oh, that reminds me. Like there was one scene. I can't remember when in the movie it was, but I think it's one of the moments where it's sort of panning across the window of the landlord and the landlady, and they're having one of their battles. But rather than like just being, like slap fighting kind of thing, like it was actually like them having a martial arts fight. like blocking, deflecting, and like dodging and stuff while they were having an argument about lipstick or something. I think it
Oh,
was.
the one where it starts out with them dancing, right? Like they're doing a tango or something, or a waltz, and I think it's a waltz, and they, and she sees lipstick on him again and strikes him, and she hit so many people in the head in this movie. It was, and what was she hitting them with a shoe? Was that what she was? I felt like she had something in her hand when she would hit people.
I think it was a flip flop.
Was it a flip? Okay.
Or sandals or whatever, whatever equivalent.
But yeah, no, that I really like just the whole environment they create at Pigsty Alley. Just just that location is a really interesting place. And I think that's, what is it, the 72 Tenants? Is that the reference that's to? It's an old Cho Yuen movie.
No, I've not heard of that.
Isn't it the 82 Tenants?
I thought it was a 72 Tenant. I could have my numbers wrong. I'll look it up while we move into the next segment. Unless anybody has anything else to add, we should probably get to the ratings and recommendation segment of the show. But I don't know. Does anybody have anything I missed in the topical discussions?
I guess we never really addressed the romantic subplot there. But there's not much to add. I mean, like the partner in question can't speak, and she was on screen for all of I think over maybe a minute throughout the whole movie. So it's really hard to say that the romance was super important anyway.
No, I think it was still crucial. I think it was very important. I think it was very condensed, and I think I think that, like you said, she doesn't speak and she's only there for a few brief moments, but they make fairly good use of her time. She's speaking sign language, but she's saying to him do you remember me or something, right? She's that's, at least that was my, I mean, I don't know sign language, but that I felt like they were doing very obvious signs for do you remember me, and it was, and also I just thought that those scenes worked really well.
The scenes worked well, in isolation. But the thing is, going back to the why did he suddenly decide to defend the couple thing? It's the moment where he turns around doesn't connect in any way to the storyline with her. And I don't know. I just feel it's you kind of feel like that story with her is her. She's kind of a path to redemption for him, but it doesn't quite all connect together, even though the scenes in their own way do work individually.
Well, the one way it does connect is when they ask him if he has any last requests. He does draw an image of the
lollipop.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I was talking about the actual. That's after he's kind of
all beaten up
himself. Yeah. I mean, but I would say that moment doesn't.
I feel like it just needed a little bit just to maybe a flashback from just to remind us of his motivations, why he wanted to learn about this power in the first place, was to solve crime or try and bring world peace or something along those lines.
World peace was the
world peace was the objective of Buddha's farm. Yeah, just a quick sort of flashback to the beggar, sort of outlining all these life goals for him, would have made that scene make more sense. He's remembering his childhood dreams, and seeing the mute girl rekindled his passion for doing the right thing.
I mean, it's pretty typical Stephen Chow, where he's sort of famous for having these comedic films with a sort of a lot of this sort of physical kind of stuff that you see with a lot of heart that's sort of centered around some kind of relationship, right? And so I'd be curious, do you feel, Kenny, that it was more effective in a film like Shaolin Soccer in that respect, or in King of Comedy or something?
Yeah, I mean, because in both of those movies, there was development on both characters, right? Yeah. It wasn't just Stephen Chow's character improving by himself as it is in Kung Fu here, in Kung Fu Hustle here. So it definitely worked better in those movies than it did here.
Yeah, because you get much more romantic material throughout the whole movie too, in both. In King of Comedy, like it's almost all the film is about, and in Shaolin Soccer, there's just a lot more of the female character, and so it's like in this movie I don't know how many times do we actually see her. We see her like looks like we just lost Adam, but we see her like what, like maybe
first meeting, and then the secondary mugging,
Mm-hmm.
and then
3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah, for 4 times I think. Literally 4 scenes that she's there. And none of them were particularly long.
Yeah, I feel like you're correct that it.
In fact, I would actually hesitate to say that it was a romantic subplot either, because if for all it could be, maybe she was asked to be friends when they were children, right? Like, and then maybe that's the only thing that's been lingering on her mind.
Actually,
maybe she just wants to be friends with him.
I mean, that's a good point. The only thing that makes me hesitate on that is the movie poster scene, because that's clearly like because I feel like we have like 5 minutes, maybe not even 5 minutes. We probably have 3 minutes of romance footage in the movie, right? Like if you put all of those scenes together, I'll bet you it only comes to about 3 or 4 minutes, and so everything is very efficiently told. And I feel like like every little thing that happens has a certain amount of weight to it. And so that scene in front of the movie poster makes me feel like that was meant to be romantic. But I do think you're right. Like it could just as easily just be, this is sort of more about him connecting with his childhood innocence, and this person that he had that he should have befriended that he didn't when he was beaten up like that. But I don't know. I think is.
We can get philosophical and just say like she is a symbol of his childhood regret, and and the ending of the movie is him coming to terms with the things he couldn't do as a child but can now do as an adult, kind of thing, and accepting himself for who. Yeah, but it's even Chow. Like, you don't put me into that.
You don't want to dig too deeply into that. Yeah, I think you go more by feel than thought in a Stephen Chow movie. Well, let me ask you this: what did you think of the knife throwing and Cobra scene?
One of my favorite parts of the movie is just
funny.
When his friend pulls the knife out. It's like, no, don't. Then he just sticks it right back in. That just always kills me.
And I just love how it's capped with the cobras. He picks up the basket and he's about to throw it, and all the cobras fall on top of him. And I like how it connects with the fact that he's this hidden kung fu genius. Like, you have he's bitten by the cobras. And his friend is very surprised that he survived this, and he doesn't seem to be fazed at all. So I like that the movie is pretty consistent in terms of that, sort of how it handles the martial characters. Oh, by the way, I looked it up. It's House of 72 Tenants is the name of the movie.
Okay.
But yeah. So why don't we get into our recommendations and ratings? Why don't we start with you, Dion, so that you can have you don't have to worry about other people's ratings before you give your.
Oh, I wasn't going to.
I didn't think you would, but I just wanted to make it as easy as possible.
No, I give it a 2. I didn't turn it off, like I said, so it wouldn't be a 1. And I actually sat through it twice, and I liked it better the second time than the first time. I think. If you are a Stephen Chow fan, you definitely should see it. It just wasn't my forte. It was just too all over the place for me. It did have its entertaining points, and I liked some of the characters, but it's just not a movie that I'll watch over and over again.
And what about Kenny? What about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd say I'd give it a. I'd say a 3. I'm gonna be a little bit harsher on this movie, just because I think it's like it's very accessible. I think anybody can watch this movie, and if they enjoy it, they'll enjoy it, or they could hate it. In Dion's case, but I'm not gonna say everybody must watch this movie. because it's maybe like it's. I'd say if you have to watch like a Stephen, sort of a Stephen Chow movie, then Shadow Soccer would be a better movie, both for the characters and the story. But Kung Fu Hustle was just enjoyable. Turn your mind off, watch it, and like not have to, think about character motivations and all that kind of stuff here. I'd say a 3 from me. Like, watch it if it's on Netflix and you have an evening and nothing better to do. But don't like go out of your way to hunt it down. I'd say.
Adam?
Yeah, I like it definitely more than Kenny in that regard. I'm trying to decide between a 4 and a 5 because it's like it does. I don't know. It's got like little flaws if you think about it, but it just flows so perfectly that none of the flaws actually bother me. So I don't know. It's a tough one to categorize in that respect. But yeah, I personally think it is worth seeking out. I mean, hell, even if you don't like it, it's at least memorably unlikable. But it's something I think it's just a very unique movie. So even having seen at the time I hadn't seen any Stephen Chow movies at all, but even having seen some now, it's still very distinct even among his movies. So I don't know. You keep sticking me with movies that I have to give a 5 to, so I'll give it a 5.
I would give it a 5 as well, if only because it had such an impact on me when I first saw it, and I've always had a fondness for it that hasn't really diminished. So, if I like a movie for like 15 years or however, what is it? It came out in 2004, so 16 years, 15 years. I think, I got to give it a 5. And I think in this one too, I think especially, I understand exactly what you were saying, Kenny, because if you watch King of Comedy, if you watch, what is it, From Beijing with Love or Shaolin Soccer, in a lot of ways, like, those are better movies on paper, right? Like they're and I think they're movies that like that if you're into these kind of films that you might kind of appreciate more. But what Kung Fu Hustle does well, I think, is it makes a film that's got a lot of global appeal. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of times, like if I try to show somebody Shaolin Soccer or King of Comedy, like a lot of the times it's not going to it's not all going to translate to every person, right? Like it's certain people will like it, but with Kung Fu Hustle, I just find it's got broader appeal for whatever reason. I think that's because it relies so heavily on physical humor. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and I guess also because it draws a lot from Western movies as well for their references. So we, have The Shining, Matrix moments, Looney Tunes, and that kind of stuff. Like, it's things that people have seen in their childhood and loved already, and this is just trying to draw it all together in one go. So it's kind of like I'd say it's like a mishmash of things that people have enjoyed in one, and it does very well in sort of invoking these sort of childhood memories of those kind of shows, and I think that's probably part of the appeal as to why everybody lots of people in the West like it as well, just because it's universal in that sense for them. But
what I would say is what I think one of the good functions it can serve too is people can get introduced to Stephen Chow through this, right? And then they can go and they can discover those other movies that we were talking about, which maybe they'll be more open to because they'll go in thinking that they like Stephen Chow and now they want to hear what he has to say. And so, because I do think that those movies in a lot of ways are richer experiences, right? But I think that they're just are a little bit more provincial or a little bit more. They're all also, I think, this movie has just a look and a feel and a style to it as well that makes it very appealing to just a general audience member, I think. So
to back your opinion up, I like I said earlier, I watched this movie before I got into watching these kind of movies at all, so it really worked for me just seeing it completely out of context.
But did you feel like it made you want to watch more of Stephen Chow or like more other
It
martial arts
did,
movies?
yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, I didn't get around to it for a long time, but
It
it
planted the
was,
seed there.
yeah, exactly.
So I would give it a 5, and I would recommend people check it out. I mean, it's one of these movies you kind of like. So many people know it. It's kind of like a, you know, it's easy to find, and I think that it's definitely the kind of film that is referenced by other movies at this point. So it's worth checking out just for that reason as well. But
Is it?
I'm quite sure I've seen Kung Fu. Well, I don't know, because I guess there's always the question: were they referencing Kung Fu Hustle or the thing that
Or the
Kung Fu
original
Hustle-
movie.
Yeah. So maybe I shouldn't say that. But
Yeah.
either way,
actually,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was going to answer Kenny's question a little better. Basically, I remember when Shaolin Soccer came out, and I heard about it. It's like, oh, it's this comedy about kung fu and soccer, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then after I saw this movie, when I'm like, oh, it was made by the same guy that made Kung Fu Hustle. I was like, oh, I was really interested in seeing it. So
Yeah, I think it's harder for me because like I grew up knowing who Stephen Chow was already, so that
yeah,
I think it's different context for if I watch Kung Fu Hustle first without knowing who Stephen Chow was, I'm not sure that I'd like, oh, if I watch more, it's probably gonna be more of that Looney Tunes crazy stuff. And
yeah.
No,
yeah, it's a personal.
But also, what Kenny's saying, people should heed, because those movies are really, really good films, and I think that they're like, he's got a really big, catalog of movies that you can go back and watch. Not just things that he directed, but things that he was, an actor in. That even though he didn't direct them, they still kind of have a Stephen Chow vibe. Like a Chinese Odyssey, I don't think he directed, but it still kind of feels like a Stephen Chow movie to me. Do you know what I mean? It's got a lot of the same key elements. So I think it's worth going back and looking at all of this stuff, and Kung Fu Hustle is probably a good entry point for a lot of people. So anyways, we've been going on for an hour, so I'm going to end it here, and we'll be back on next week with another film. And until then, we will talk to you later.